The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, Part 2 of the Big Fantasy Baseball Podcast with Matthew Berry. In Part 1, we ended up talking about sleepers and rookies. Part 2, we're going to try to make it a little more mainstream. Matthew Berry in the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Still, what's happening?
I'm excited to be here.
You know, you talked about teams that you like, and I think we both agree that sometimes if you like a team, it's just not a bad idea to gang up on a couple of their guys because you want to have a team that's overachieving or whatever.
Right.
I kind of like what the A's did this year.
Yeah.
They always they're pretty predictable at this point. They go after certain types, and like somebody like Matsui is just a classic Oakland A's signing.
Right.
He'll be good for them.
He will be,
but
no one will. No, that's another one that no one likes, right?
You're bored of him. You're bored. I feel like I failed.
Right, but he'll go for whatever $3 or $4 less than he should because no one really likes him. But you're going to look up at the end of the year and he's going to have 18 home runs and 80 RBIs and be fine.
They have some very interesting pitchers, and it's possible that they just might have an excellent rotation. If it shakes out a certain way.
I think they're absolutely going to do this.
They're a little lefty-heavy, in my opinion.
I absolutely love – one of my big kind of flag guys this year that I'm all in on is Gio Gonzalez.
Everybody likes him, though.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody's a little too fired up for him.
That's sort of the problem is you get these sleepers, but,
Is it possible to even have sleepers anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't think it is either.
I honestly think – because I get asked that all the time, like, so hey, give me a sleeper. Give me a sleeper. And it's just like, well, what's a sleeper? I'll give you. You want to know a sleeper, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I say this. Here's a sleeper. Ichiro Suzuki's a sleeper. And I was going to go like, seriously, one of the best outfielders in baseball the last 10 years, a sleeper. But the reason he's a sleeper is because people get so hyped up on sleepers, and they want the next big thing that you see like where a guy like Ichiro goes for. I got him for like $24 or $26 in Tout Wars, in AL Tout Wars, which is crazy. I mean, he's a guy that is going to score a lot of runs, hit for a high average, steal a bunch of bases, and get you 600 at bats. Do all those, to get even if he only, quote unquote, only hits 315 as opposed to the 350 that he's capable of that we've seen. Even if he only hits 315. To get 315 over 600 bats absorbs a lot of batting average. It allows you to take an Adam Dunn. It allows you to take an Edwin Encarnacion kind of guy there. I'm looking at our average draft results on ESPN.com, and Ichiro Suzuki's going 12th among outfielders. There's two guys going ahead of him. Yeah. Jason Hayward and Andrew McCutchen. And I like both those guys a lot. But that's insane. That you're going to take one guy who's done. Neither guy has done it consistently. They're both very young. You expect them obviously to continue to prove. But Ichiro, even if he's not the Ichiro of 5 years ago, he's still one of the best outfielders in baseball from a fantasy perspective.
Well, you just described something that you and I have talked about on this podcast, but not with baseball. It's the Marvin Harrison phenomenon.
Right. Yes.
It was those last 3 years of Harrison's career when it became much more exciting to draft Calvin Johnson or whoever, Larry Fitzgerald, whoever the next big big guy that was coming, and yet Marvin Harrison was cranking out his 12 TDs and 1,200 yards every year, and people are like, eh.
Right.
And eventually it caught up because he had the year where he fell off the cliff, but there was like a 3-year stretch there where he didn't.
Vernon Wells is a similar guy. That's why you look, when you draft Vernon Wells or you draft Ichiro Suzuki in your draft, and you draft, if you were in this league, right, and you draft Andrew McCutchen or Jason Hayward, someone in your league is going to go, ooh, or damn, or oh, great pick, right? And when you draft Ichiro, no one's going to go, ooh, no one's going to go like awesome. But that's money in the bank. I don't know. To me, too many people get hyped up about the rookie. I mean, I understand it because you've got your League of Dorks draft, but the fact is like that whole list, the first half hour of this podcast, Bill, frankly, is like, who cares? I mean, to me, it's important to know if you're in a deep league, some of these young rookies, but like, it's not nearly as important to know kind of the guys that are going to get consistent playing time, that you know what they're going to do.
My strategy with that was I just felt like anybody who was going to listen had already kind of had their opinions on the main guys. Like, we don't need to discuss whether Pujols is going to have a good year.
Well, maybe not Pujols, but I think
to unearth some. But like, for instance, how about this Jake Fox guy?
Right.
This guy he was the Babe Ruth of 2011 spring training in Baltimore.
I believe he's got 8 home runs. They're trying to figure out what to do with him in Baltimore. He in Tout Wars, believe it or not, he actually qualifies at catcher because there's only 15 games to qualify there. So check your league eligibility. You know what? He could make it. I mean, the thing is you look at Baltimore, I think there's lots of opportunity. I actually grabbed Felix PA for $2 at Tout Wars, which I'm excited about because Derek Lee, injury-prone on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Vladimir Guerrero on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
You figure the Orioles aren't in the race, so I would not
trade
both
Guerrero.
guys. At least Guerrero, and if they can get anything out of Lee, certainly they would try to trade him.
They have like a softball team kind of feel to them, which I like. I think that's how you have to play it because it's not like they're going to win the AL East anyway. So
right.
Have a lot of 11-9 games and wear teams out.
I like the Orioles. From a fantasy perspective, we talk about teams, right? I think the Orioles, I love Luke Scott.
Like their offense.
Luke Scott is another guy who hits a home run about every 16 at-bats. He's just never gotten consistent playing time, and now he's gonna start in the outfield, and he's also the backup first baseman when Derek Lee misses games, which he will, right? So, whatever. Markakis is fine. I think Adam Jones is one of those guys that finally puts it all together this year.
Well, we all know Vlad's going to have a big year.
Vlad's going to have a big year.
No question.
I actually, Brian Roberts stole double-digit bases when he came back. People forget that. I know it's a health risk, but
and also their bullpen's going to suck, which means they're going to be in a lot of games that are going to go into the 10th, 11th, and 12th inning. That's one of my weird pet theories. I'm sure some statistical site will immediately rebuff it, but
right.
You want those teams that are going to be involved in games that are 9-7 and 10-8. Those are the teams you want hitters on. Teams that blew the lead again in the 9th inning.
I like Koji Yahara. I mean, I know Kevin Gregg's the guy there, but Koji Yahara, if you're looking for
I like him too.
You're looking for a setup sleeper there. I think Matt Wieters is a post-type sleeper. Could be solid this year. And I like Mark Reynolds, another guy you want to talk about. BABIP and everything got unlucky last year. Look, at best you're going to get 250. That what you're hoping out of Mark Reynolds is 250. But it's one category. He gets you some speed. He's going to get you power, runs scored, RBIs. I think Mark Reynolds has a real nice year for where he's going and considering how shallow third base is in the American League. If you're in an AL-only league, I think Reynolds is a very solid $15 player.
So you don't think Matt Wieters is basically the catching Alex Gordon?
No, I don't.
All right.
I don't.
Is there a National League team that you're like, I like that team, I want the guys on that team?
Believe it or not, the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Ooh. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah, I actually really like the Pittsburgh Pirates. We all know about McCutchen, right?
Yeah.
But
although he's overhyped at this point.
I agree.
It's because he's so cool to watch. Like, it's fun to watch him hit a triple.
Yeah, I mean, he's terrific, though, right? But Jose Tabata, if you look at his numbers, I did a column called 100 Facts, whatever, and I talked about this. If you looked at when Tabata came up on June 9th, right, he had more steals, more runs scored, more RBIs than Jose Reyes from that date forward. Just to give you an idea of kind of where his stats value.
To be fair, though, to be fair, he's 7 years older than Jose Reyes.
and has the Dirk Nowitzki ex-wife, basically, the Dirk Nowitzki level of crazy ex. But I think Jose Tabata is going to have a really nice year. Some cheap speed. He's going like in the 22nd round of our drafts. Ooh. So there's a guy to me that is going to steal 30, 35 bases with a high average, score a lot of runs. We know about McCutchen. I really like Pedro Alvarez. Again, we talk about home runs per at-bat. Hit one home run every 21 at-bats last year. And so of third basemen last year that had at least 325 plate appearances, there are only 4 third basemen that had a better average than that. It's basically, Pedro Alvarez, believe the hype. I like both Hanrahan and Evan Meek. Like, Evan Meek is another one of those guys that's like, if you're looking for a setup guy that's got a shot at saves, and even if he doesn't get saves, he's going to get good strikeouts and good ERA and WHIP. Evan Meek is one of those guys, and they got a starter, a kid named James McDonald. When he came over from the Dodgers, he came over, I believe, in the Dotel trade. Came over to from the Dodgers, and as a starter with the Pirates, 61 strikeouts in 64 innings, was really strong. Just walked 24. McDonald is a guy that I like a lot in an NL only league. So to me, and then you've got McCutchen. I think Neil Walker's a plucky little guy. Garrett Jones is another one of those guys that no one ever likes, that goes late, but at the end of the year he's going to have 20 home runs. I like the Pirates.
Interesting. I mean, at least at some point they got to be good. They've been drafting all these guys forever. Forever. And again, do I think they win the NL Central? No, of course not. But again, yeah, everyone knows the pools. If you're asking me, what's a team that has a lot of fantasy value, like guys going really late because people aren't necessarily aware of them or they don't have the hype other than a McCutchen? I think it's the Pirates. How about Trumbo on the Angels and Chris Davis on the Rangers? Do either of these guys inexplicably hit 35 homers this year and everybody's stunned by it?
I think it's potential with both of them guys. If I was going to pick one, it would be Chris Davis.
Doesn't it feel like we have 7 or 8 guys this year who could just randomly hit 35 homers?
Absolutely.
I think it's the record for most guys, and I don't know why this is, because in general, it just seems like there are more home run guys than we've had the last couple of years. These guys are coming out of the minors.
Well, it's
bopping.
It's partially. I think they stand out a little bit more because power is so scarce.
That's what it is. Right.
I mean, there's
good point.
Power is actually at a 5-year low. Suddenly, suddenly I sound like a swap shot guy. Like the what are they? What are those guys? I'm losing my train of thought here. The guys that do pawn shops. Sorry, gold is at a 5-year low. Those guys, or a 20-year high.
So like a Jake Fox, he jumps out because not a lot of people are hitting bombs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you look at the numbers, their home runs per game, the number of home runs hit per game, is at a 5-year low. It's been trending down, and last year was the lowest it's been in 5 years. Meanwhile, steals have basically remain the same, and you can argue maybe it's steroids, maybe it's different parks, maybe it's pitchers getting better, who knows, whatever you want to argue, but power is much more scarce than it ever has been. So in terms of constructing your team, if we just bring this back to fantasy for a second here, Bill, in terms of constructing your team, I sort of feel like you want to make sure you get power, and especially power in the outfield. You're not going to be able to avoid speed in the outfield. There's so many Rajay Davis, Michael Bourne, Juan Pierre, all those guys. Michael Brantley, nice little sleeper for you in AL only.
Borjos.
Peter Borjos, exactly. That's it. I mean, there's a lot of guys like that. Yeah. And then there's more guys that are hitting power that'll steal you 10 bases as well, right? So there's more kind of power speed combos. Even the guys that hit power steal 10 bases, steal 12 bases. So to me, you're not going to be able to avoid speed in the outfield. You'll get speed at some point, but to me, if you don't get power, at least some power early, you're going to be chasing it the rest of the draft or auction.
All right, a couple other things that we got to hit. The Yankees' 4th and 5th starter is like a serious wild card because Bartolo Colon, Nova, Freddie Garcia.
His official name is Big Fat Bartolo Colon, by the way.
Giant Bartolo Colon.
Right.
One of these guys is going to end up winning like 13 games and having a decent year, and it bugs me, but they all have to be looked at and examined. Who is the guy who
Nova
13 to 14 for them?
Well, Nova is the guy that's locked into the 4. It's really between, and same thing, actually. We just talked about this with Buster, and he talks to those guys all the time, the front office, the Yankee brass. And he believes that Garcia, actually, even though Colon has been lights out this spring, that Garcia might be the 5th starter because they think Colon is better suited for the bullpen. Of the two of them, like one's got to go to the bullpen, one's got to be in the rotation. And they think Colon is better suited for the. They're like, Garcia, Colon might be better as a starter, but he's a lot better in the bullpen. Like Garcia will just be a total dog in the bullpen. So which is unfortunate because I actually have Colon for $1 in Tout Wars.
They say he's been plates out.
He's been ridiculous. It took me a second. Sorry, it took me a second. Yeah, he's
been lights out in the kitchen.
Right.
How many bad Jay Leno jokes can I make right now?
Oh, you can do at least 2 more. He's been eating the rosin bag.
You know where else the lights are out? The refrigerator. Thank you. Headlines are coming up next.
I would love to just do a whole podcast making fun of Jay Leno.
Well, hold on. Let's move on. So we don't know.
Anyway,
Nova might be a good pick.
If I would rank them from a fantasy perspective, Nova, Colon, Garcia, because even if Garcia's in the rotation, doesn't mean he sticks. He's been terrible this spring. To me, Colon I think will return more fantasy value, but that's how I would rank them: as Nova, Colon, Garcia, even if Garcia starts the year in the rotation.
Something I was talking about, Mike Mendelson, commissioner of the League of Dorks, who will be giving League of Dorks updates this year, KidMikey1 at Twitter.com, whatever.
Okay.
So we both think that it seems like the closer position is morphing. And if you look at like what the Red Sox did this year, I thought it was really interesting. So they go out and they get Jenks. They keep Bard. They keep Papelbon,
right,
which everybody thought we were going to trade him. We didn't.
Right.
Signed Dan Wheeler.
Like Dan Wheeler a lot. I thought that was a nice signing.
Yeah, it's the deepest bullpen the Red Sox have ever had, and I do wonder if they're going to try something this year that we've always wondered if a team's going to try, which is, Bard is probably the best pitcher in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that will come in and put out fires, but maybe he'll put out the fire in the 5th inning now or the 6th inning. Maybe Papelbon, who's ostensibly the closer, maybe he comes in like. I feel like the saves are going to be spread out, and they're going to use these guys more in the fashion of putting out fires. There's a fire in the 7th inning. Let's get it done here. And they don't really care who closes.
Disagree.
Now, they're saying Papelbon's the closer, but
yes.
I don't know if it's going to play out that way. Maybe I'm wrong. But
I think
it does seem like teams are grafting toward the closer position not quite mattering as much as it did, and which makes it really hard for fantasy because, like, you look at what Tampa did. They're claiming Farnsworth is the closer, but Jake McGee is the best reliever they probably have, and he's the guy who will put out the fires. It's almost like we need a name for these guys. I always suggested the cooler. It never caught on. But it seems like the cooler has become as or more important than the closer.
I think they have different roles in the bullpen. I think you're having a real-life baseball discussion versus a fantasy one.
Yeah. But it becomes a fantasy one because it affects how you draft. Like, we're looking at, my AL keeper draft, and there's like 15 setup guys who could easily end up with 30 saves. Like somebody like Matt Capps. He could end up with 30 saves. Joe Nathan gets hurt. He takes the job. That's it. So long, Joe Nathan.
No question.
I don't ever remember this many guys who could potentially be closers and end up with 30 saves ever.
Oh no, it's always been like that.
No, it hasn't.
It's
it
always
has not.
absolutely.
No.
That's why I always say never pay for saves because it's every year there's turnover.
Well, this is
every
the year that you're right.
Turnover.
There's no question you're right now.
Well, I will say this about closers, and for a guy who says never pay for saves, I shocked a lot of people in Tower Wars because I went out and got Soria. And my basic take was, and I'll tell you this for your League of Dorks draft, which is in the AL, I think you either want to get Rivera or Soria or you're waiting. Because to me, after those two guys, you get into a lot of question marks. Papelbon, right? Tough year last year. They've got Jenks and Bard. I think he could get dealt. He could lose the role. They're not going to be as patient with him as they have been. Neftali Feliz, as of the taping of this, he's currently the closer, but all signs point to him being into the bullpen, being in the rotation.
Yeah, but the problem is they don't have anybody to put in that closer role.
I know it's probably going to be Alexi Agondo, but all him and Mark Lowe and Darren
Lowe's
O'Day,
terrible. How many years can he be bad?
They've all pitched brutally bad. So it's hard to say, but I think they might try it. That's what we're hearing. Joe Nathan about the injury, who knows? Chris Perez, I actually like Chris Perez a lot. A lot of people don't realize this about Chris Perez, but once Kerry Wood got traded, okay, I know he was in and out of the closer role there while Wood was hurt, but once Kerry Wood got traded and Chris Perez was the guy, he was tied for the top 10 in terms of saves, had a 0.63 ERA, a 32-10 strikeout to walk rate, in just 28 and 2/3 innings.
I'm totally in on Chris Perez. You don't have to. And also he's somebody that they traded for, who had value when they trade. I mean, this is not a surprise that he's doing this.
No, but Valverde's a little bit of a little bit of an injury risk and also a little bit of a whip risk. Andrew Bailey, who knows what's going on there? So you start getting into some question marks. Matt Thornton, I like a lot, but as you mentioned, certainly not rock solid. Same with Kevin Gregg, Fernando League. I mean, David Ardsma can't even walk yet. I think Brandon League's the guy. I think he just started walking.
Yeah, it's not good. He put it this way: he was being offered around in our league.
Right.
Frank, you want a guy who can't walk? Anybody?
Well, depending on the price, actually, because eventually he'll walk, and I think eventually, he'll get the job. I honestly think what happens with Ardsma is what happens with Kerry Wood last year, which is when Brandon League is the closer to start out. Ardsma comes back, they put him in the closer role to get his trade value up, he gets some saves, and then they deal him, and League's the guy the rest of the year. So I think for this year, if you're looking at kind of a comparison, I think Kerry Wood and Chris Perez last year is David Ardsma and Brandon League this year. But anyway, my point is it gets ugly quick, and now Frank Francisco is probably going to miss about a month. And so you don't know what's going on in Toronto. Maybe it's John Roush, maybe it's Octavio Dotel. My guess is it would be Roush, be the first guy. But so I think you either go sure thing with Rivera or Soria, or you wait and go super cheap with some McGee guys, those kind of guys in the AL.
You stockpile those guys.
Right, and you hope. And I think that's the case sort of this year with the closers. Like, if either get one elite guy, one of the first, and to me, the elite guys are Rivera, Soria, Heath Bell, and Marmol, and that's it.
We've always had more closers than that. You have to admit, this is an all-time closer dearth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of question marks. I agree with you there. I mean, Brian Wilson would be in that list, but now looks like might miss a month. You don't like the fact that he's, he came back and they had to stop short, that he had a setback. So
I have a trade for you.
Okay.
This is just a trade that makes sense to me. Papelbon should be traded to the Rangers right now. If I'm the Rangers, I do that, and I give up one of my better major league, close to being ready prospects for a year of Papelbon. And I move Feliz to starter because that's what he wants to do. And it just seems like that's a logical trade. The Red Sox have a ton of depth. They don't have a lot of major league ready prospects that people love.
Right.
It just makes sense. It's a logical trade.
Yeah, I don't mind that one at all, especially if you're the Rangers. You figure, look, chances are you're winning the AL West. You were in the World Series last year. This is your year. This is your time.
Let's talk quickly because we ignored all the high price guys.
Yeah, I know. This was the dorkiest League of Dorks podcast ever.
People are so delighted by how this podcast went. They can't even fathom how much they loved it.
All the fans we built up with the 90210 podcast, all the women blog coming back for this one. You think
they're all they're ecstatic for how this went.
Sure.
So, out of all the high price guys,
yep.
Because high price guys aren't really worth talking about, but every year there's a guy that's in that high price. He's going to be one of the 10 most expensive guys, either in the mixed league or your keeper league or your AL only league or NL only league, whatever. There's always a guy that falls through the cracks a little bit. Last year was Miguel Cabrera in my league, but it can vary from league to league. It's just somebody we all fall asleep on, and all of a sudden he goes, and people are waiting for somebody to go to 33, and nobody does, and it's like, oh, they just got Miguel Cabrera for $32. That's a disaster. Who is that guy this year that could kind of sneak by and go for $4 cheaper, the elite guys?
Well, Ichiro would be one of the guys that I would say. I mean, we already just talked about him. Yeah. So try to come up with a different guy.
Because there's going to be a lot of Carl Crawford hype. There's going to be a lot of Adrian Gonzalez hype. To me,
go ahead.
Seems like it might be A-Rod.
You know what? It's interesting. I think A-Rod's actually a pretty good call. He's having a monster spring. And a
lot of stories about how great shape he's in, best shape of his life.
Right.
Body fat's down.
So I think A-Rod could be one of those guys. I think Prince Fielder could be one of those guys.
That's another guy I was thinking of. Yeah.
Contract year for him. People don't realize this. Guy I believe he led Major League Baseball in walks. He had 114. I'm pretty sure that was tops in Major League Baseball last year. So I believe that with the another year of Ricky Weeks, Casey McGee, Ryan Braun, I think they're going to have to pitch to him more contract year. And by the way, if you believe this, as long as we're doing goofy theories, your long name theory and everything like that, if you look at Prince Fielder's career, every other year he has a monster year. And so last year was an off year.
I like
this year is an on year.
Who's the football player who did that? There's a football player who would do that. I can't remember.
I can't either.
I have two more for you. Let me know what you think.
Right.
Pedroia and Kinsler.
Kinsler, I think you're right on, except I hate Ian Kinsler. I just think he always goes. He might finally be going right around where he should be because the injury histories and the 1 year his power is down, the next year his average is down.
You don't actually hate him. You fantasy.
No.
From a fantasy sports hate him.
I fantasy sports hate him. I'm not.
You don't like legitimately hate him.
Yeah, not like how you are with Donald Sterling. No. I have just a professional hate of Ian Kinsler because he gets so overvalued. Just because he goes so high and he never produces at the level you expect him to. So. Maybe on Kinsler, if he stays healthy, obviously he's going to be of value. But Pedroia, I'm with you. Although I think what killed you on Pedroia is the injury to Chase Utley. Because now, Chase Utley, I'm not going anywhere near. He may not play this year. That's a bad end. They just don't know.
And then the other guy like that is Morneau.
But at least
Morneau go?
Well, Morneau's going in the seventh round in terms of ESPN 10-team mixed league drafts, and Morneau at least we see Morneau out on the field. He's hitting. Now there's always the risk.
Talking about things are still a little foggy.
Well, yeah.
I'm wearing this weird helmet. I'm getting used to it. I don't know.
Right. There's definitely risk with Morneau, but I feel like there's more risk with Utley. The Phillies are we don't know. It's not there's literally no timetable for his return. And to me,
is his hamate bone okay?
I think oddly he has one of the best hamate bones in the business. It's just everything else. But to me, so because Utley goes down in second base at the elite level is a little shallow, to me, Pedroia the clear-cut number 2. So I think that hurts you there. I'll say that a high upside guy is Nelson Cruz. That maybe goes a couple of bucks less.
Nelson Cruz.
I love Nelson Cruz. It just depends. Your draft will either... Nelson Cruz won't go for what he's worth. Nelson Cruz will either go for $4 less because too many people are worried about the injuries, or $4 more because everyone's buying into the hype.
I've got another sneaky elite guy.
Okay.
At some point, isn't Evan Longoria just going to have a monster year?
I don't think so. I think
he is who he is.
I think he is what he is. I think he improves a little bit on what he did last year, but I don't think we see an A-Rod kind of year out of Longoria. I think he's very good, but I think we're close to the ceiling on Longoria.
Really? You don't think he has that random career year?
Anything's possible, obviously, but no, I don't think he has a crazy year where...
But law of averages is somebody eventually just has a year that's much better than any other year they had. That you just look through baseball history, and that usually happens.
Well, sure, but now you're just throwing darts. Who's going to have that year? I don't know. To me, I feel like this is what Longoria is, and it's very, very good. But I don't know that Longoria. When you say a monster year for him, what are you expecting? Are you expecting 50 home runs?
Yeah, I'm saying one of these years he's going to hit 47 homers or something.
Maybe we project him for 35. I think that's right. Last year obviously only hit 22. So, listen, he's young enough. He's 25, but I think that's very optimistic. I would be surprised if he ever got to 40.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's very, very good, but I think 40 would be the top to me for Longoria. Here's a guy that I think could go. You want an elite guy?
Yeah.
Matt Holliday.
Oh.
Matt Holliday, people sort of forget about it. It's yeah, he's solid, he's fine. Nothing sexy or interesting about Matt Holliday, but Matt Holliday, I think, is a guy that, that depending on where he gets thrown out at an auction, could go for a couple of bucks less because you're sort of asleep at the wheel. Just trying to give you, in your scenario, I could see Matt Kemp going a little bit cheaper than what he earns this year. No longer dating Rihanna. That's got to be good.
Yeah.
So
got that out of the way.
And one more guy that I absolutely love is Shin-Soo Choo. And what I love about it, I think he is what he is, right? He's 300, he's 20-20. But to get that kind of production, that kind of consistent production from an outfield spot, which is more shallow than people realize. People are like, oh, there's so many outfielders. But when you got to play 5 and you start looking at all the platoons, outfield is actually one of the more shallow positions, in my opinion.
Yeah. I also feel like third base is a little weak, too.
Oh, Yeah.
Especially in the American League, it's brutal.
Oh.
After the top 2, it's just it falls off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you a good third baseman for the American League. A couple of good guys, right? Like deeper. Like if you're not in on Longoria and you're not in on A-Rod, like I got Johnny Peralta for $15, which might have been a buck or two high, but I wanted him because he also qualifies at shortstop. But Johnny Peralta is a guy that's not going to hurt you. Going to hit 15 home runs, 17 home runs, qualifies at 2 positions. Like that's a guy. Like I'd rather have a guy like that that's just sort of solid. The other thing you can do, just if you're looking at sort of draft strategy, is go after Euclid. And keep in your mind, once you get Euclid, keep in mind you're like, this guy's going to be my third baseman. Yep. I'm going to, with my very last pick or my very last dollar, I'm just going to get a third baseman, that'll get me through the first 2 weeks.
Right.
And then once he qualifies at third base, I'm going to move Euclid over. But as you're composing your team, just think about, maybe use your, like a scenario would be in an AL only, like maybe you use Adam Lind as your DH. You get Adam Lind as your DH, you get Euclid at your first, and you've got a first baseman at your corner spot, right? So then basically, when Adam Lind, in 2 weeks, Adam Lind qualifies at first, you move him to first base, or your corner, and you move Euclid to third, and you dump the fill-in guy that you got.
Last question. Miguel Cabrera. More fantasy names involving him or Charlie Sheen this year?
Charlie Sheen.
Okay.
I believe.
Because you don't feel like the Charlie Sheen thing burned out a little bit?
You know what, a little bit, but I think it's gonna come back when you're coming up. I mean, let's try. I actually came up with a couple of Charlie Sheen team names. We were doing this on my Twitter for a while when that started happening. I was going back and forth with them. But let's try to come up with let's see where we run out in terms of Miguel Cabrera team names and Charlie Sheen team names.
I say we don't because Joe Meade's going to edit all of it out, so it's not going to matter.
Are you Joe Meade? I'm looking at Joe Meade.
He is. I think he is.
Oh. He's I
think I would buy low. I would buy low on the Miguel Cabrera team names, and I think I would sell high on the Charlie Sheen names. I think once it gets to draft day, I think more people are going to gravitate towards.
But see, I think the Miguel Cabrera thing is just as played out.
Oh, I don't feel that way.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel like I feel like that. No,
not for me.
Well, maybe not for you, but like
he's that guy. He's that guy you went to college with who he has that ninth beer, and you're like, oh my god, where'd he go? Have you seen him? No. Where? And then it's like a manhunt to hunt him down.
Well, again,
he should not drink alcohol.
There you go. Thanks. Let's send him a note. Make sure we clip that cut to Miguel Cabrera and
That's
send
my
it to him.
expert opinion.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Bill Simmons.
Hey, are you watching American Idol?
You know what? I am, but I'm behind. I'm behind on my American Idol. I don't like it as much this year. I think that. And I don't know what you've talked about on the podcast, so I don't know if I'm repeating stuff. But okay. So my take on it so far. So I can't really talk about any of the finalists yet because I haven't. I've got like 5 or 6 stacked up on my DVR. But Jennifer Lopez. Here's my initial impressions, and you tell me what you think. Jennifer Lopez, much more likable than I would have thought she was. She comes across as very likable, although clueless. Steven Tyler,
she's gotten better as the last few episodes have gone along.
Maybe they're giving her serious coaching.
No, she's very likable, and it feels like she's genuine. And if she's not genuine, she's a great actress. And we know she's not a great actress, so I actually think she's genuine.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly. I mean, she comes across much more likable than I thought. Steven Tyler, who I had a positive opinion before the show started, I'm like, oh my God, you're like crazy. You're crazy and slightly creepy.
But both good qualities for a TV show.
I guess. I don't know.
He's been better than I thought. And actually, the last few weeks, he's had really good analysis on the singing. Like when he says things about actual singing, it has some weight because he's Steven Tyler. When Randy Jackson says things about whatever, it has no weight because he's Randy Jackson.
Right.
It's like, all right, well, you've had a decent career, but that's Steven Tyler.
Right. Well, of course. I mean, and Randy Jackson, that's the worst of it is because Randy's trying to be Simon and he's not Simon and he's. No. I mean, I was never a huge Randy fan to begin with.
We call him Fast Forward in my house. We see him, we fast forward.
He's dog and
yo dog, little pitchy.
It doesn't even make any sense, and it's like a little pitchy for me, a little pitchy, and it's okay. Anything else?
I miss Simon, and as I watch the shows, I say things that I think Simon would have said to my wife. And she thinks that I could actually be on the show just pretending to be Simon and hit 99% of the points that he would have made.
Let's make that happen.
Because like yesterday, they had the bearded guy. I can't remember his name. Casey something.
Okay.
And he did this Motown-y thing, and he did I Heard It Through the Grapevine. And this guy is like, he's very likable, but he's a borderline lounge singer. And he did a very lounge singery performance of I Heard It Through the Grapevine. He did a lot of those. Right. And the 3 judges loved it because they love everything. They're the easiest graders ever. I wish I'd had them in college.
Yeah.
And if Simon had been on there, Simon would have crushed him, and he would have been like, you know what? You're becoming a self-parody. That act was something I would have seen on a cruise ship. You know, get it together. That's not a song that could have played on the radio. That's a song that you would play for 85-year-old people on a cruise ship. And that's what the show's missing this year.
Right. Well, I think
Simon never comes in with just, hey, here's the harsh truth. You can't. That will not sell on an album.
Right. I think people miss that. I think, and that's why people respond to Simon. I think it's so rare that you see it this day, but people respond to honesty.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Matthew Berry.
Yes, sir.
The ratings and the feedback have been great. People actually like the gentle treatment.
Oh, God.
They think
they're
that
wrong.
This is like the most entertaining Idol season, et cetera, et cetera. And there was just a big USA Today story about it, I think yesterday or the day before, about how great the judges are and how great the feedback's been. And maybe this is what the show is. It's just, everybody blowing smoke on every... Yeah, I will say, though, that this is the best... The top 6 of this season is the best I've ever seen on this show. Like,
oh, wow.
Any of them would have won the last 5 seasons other than me. Adam Lambert's the only guy who's on the level of the top 6.
Wow.
This girl, Pt.2, she's like a young Whitney Houston.
Wow. Okay.
She's the best female singer I've ever seen on the show.
Well, I'll have to check it out. Like I said, I've got them all on my TiVo, and I just haven't, haven't been motivated. I haven't been like, oh, I got to watch Idol tonight. So
I think it's a must-watch, I got to say.
I have a few. I don't have a lot of must-watch, especially during, preseason fantasy baseball, preseason fantasy football. There aren't a lot of must-watch.
I like the bearded guy who's like the bearded Rod Stewart. He's good.
Right.
The Casey guy is always interesting, even though he gets a little lounge singery. The guy with Tourette's is great. The Tourette's rock star guy. He's a feel-good story, and he's gotten better every week. And there's 2 more, but there's like 6 total. Oh, the 15-year-old, Tia McGee. She's been pretty good.
Okay.
But it's just, all of them are better than Lee DeWise, put it that way.
We'll cut to Lee DeWise going, what did I do? All I did was,
hey, I'm just sitting here listening and hope for some fantasy baseball tips.
Right, exactly.
And there's one more, but it's really a strong. And they really did the right thing. They went all out and tried to find as much talent as they could. We should probably end this podcast. Anything else?
You sent me an email, and I agreed with it, that NBA playoffs going to come down to seeding. How are you feeling about your Celtics now? Because I think that was about a week ago that we were talking.
Yeah,
I'm feeling good about my Lakers. I'm feeling much better about my Lakers than when I sent that last email to you.
And nobody should have felt bad because they were clearly just biding their time until post-All-Star break, and now they've turned the switch on.
Well, I think it's going to come down to, and this scares me to say, but for the Lakers, it's going to come down to Bynum. It's going to come down to Bynum. Assuming the Spurs are healthy. If the Spurs are 100% healthy, I think it comes down to Bynum. Because that's the one thing they have. Kobe can still turn it on, and, they need Odom and Artest to be the good versions of them, not the bad versions of them. But ultimately, I think they got to get they got to get a double-double from Bynum. They have to have, a strong presence inside, especially against the Spurs. That's the one thing that they have that most teams don't have is those, Gasol, Bynum, and Odom across the front, and Bynum's the toughest of the 3.
Oklahoma City's your tough out.
Yeah, no, they were last year too, by the way.
Well, now the Perkins thing, I like that team though.
Yeah,
and you'll beat them, but it's going to be a good series.
It'll be a great series.
My team, everybody has gone too far in the wrong direction. It's not, the Bulls are peaking. They're going to get the number 1 seed, whatever. I think the Celtics conceded the 1 seed when they made the Perkins trade. Right. They're just trying to get Shaq healthy, and they're going to get the 2 seed. They got to get West and Baby back incorporated. They got to get Rondo going. I'm really not worried yet.
Are you not?
I'm worried about the thought of going into Chicago for Game 7. I just think that's going to be a really tough thing to win.
That's if I was a Boston fan, that is who would scare me.
Right, since November. That's been the team.
Yeah, not Miami, not the Knicks, not not Orlando.
Since November. That's the team. The coach knows us. Rose is the best guy on the floor in that series.
Right.
Defense, rebounding, and now that we traded Perkins, they might actually be able to out-rebound us in big games. There's a lot to worry about in that series. But my whole thing is, that was a pretty big trade to make mid-season, and you got to wait 6 weeks for everything to shake out.
I was shocked that they made that trade.
Yeah, well, listen, the Lakers.
I hated Perkins as a Lakers fan. Yeah, we were. Yeah. I was just like, oh, Perkins.
You never want to make a trade that gets your rival excited.
Yeah, I was happy about it. Although I have to say, it's weird. I'm really torn. Do you want a Lakers? I would assume you want. Do you want a Celtics Lakers final? Do you want a Celtics Thunder, Celtics, Spurs, Mavs? Final?
I only want a Lakers-Celtics final if we have a good enough team to beat them.
Right.
I don't want a Lakers-Celtics final where we're going to get beat. I'd rather go out in the previous round and lose to the Bulls, as weird as that sounds. Well, I don't want to lose to Lakers again.
Listen, I completely understand, because I got to tell you something. As a Laker fan, my nightmare is seeing Shaq in a Celtic jersey raise the trophy at Staples. That would drive me up a wall. That would drive a stake in my heart. I do not.
And my nightmare is getting out of the Staples Center after that game, because I have a 25% chance.
Right.
That's the next action movie.
It really should.
I'd have to wear a disguise like Mel Gibson.
They should do it. There was a obscure movie that I didn't think was great, but it was a great I thought premise.
Judgment Day?
No, Quick Change with Bill Murray, and they basically it was a bank robbery movie, but the joke was the bank robbery goes off smoothly. It was getting out of New York with the money that was the problem.
I remember that.
So it just didn't totally work, but I loved the premise of that. And so they should remake Quick Change, but trying to get out of Staples Center after the Lakers championship. Because same thing. It's like you're wandering around and cops are like, no, you got to go that way. And so then you walk 2 blocks and nope, you got to go back those 2. And you're like, what? Just let me leave.
Right.
And people are burning stuff. Yeah.
I thought Judgment Day should have been a classic. It went wrong. It went astray for a lot of reasons, but that's a movie that had a really good premise.
Michael Douglas has just taken it. He's gone too far. Yeah. Right. That's not. Oh, I'm thinking of
Estevez, Piven.
Oh, right. Yes.
Whatever that movie was.
What's
Falling Down? You're thinking.
Falling Down. That's the one I was thinking.
That was a fun era of movies that I don't know why they were being made, but movies where you had to get out of L.A.
It's because the people who make movies live in L.A. and they're all trying to get out of L.A.
They had this whole latent fear of it. Was basically all these movies were about white people getting trapped in the wrong point of L.A. and having to get out.
Right.
And this was a whole run of movies.
The Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon started off that way. Right.
Judgment Day.
Right.
There's a couple other ones like that, but it's pretty funny. That era has thankfully gone away. Matthew Berry, we will see you on ESPN.com.
Yep.
We will listen to your Fantasy Focus podcast.
Right.
We will see you on ESPN arguing with random baseball people.
Right.
What am I missing?
Fantasy Baseball Draft Special tonight, ESPN2.
Oh.
That you can play fantasy baseball for free with free live scoring, including auction drafts on ESPN.com. That's the most important plug.
Okay.
And that for good fantasy baseball advice, you can follow me on Twitter, Matthew Berry TMR.
Matthew Berry, talk to you soon.
Take care.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.